Good evening and welcome to Beware of Spoilers. I am Adam. After a very long day, I went out to the big city. Took a nice little excursion out to Manhattan to attend a screening at the New York City Independent Film Festival, which is not one of the big festivals. And I prefer going to these smaller ones, because these smaller ones you can sometimes see talent that may not be, when you look at like what's going on at Sundance, and it's like you see the big movies that are there. It's like Emily the Criminal and like Cha Cha Real Smooth, and even like Coda had Marley Matlin in it. But like if you look at like these movies, you don't see huge names, and you get to see people on the start of their career, and people who are beginning to move into their new their new positions that they may be getting. I didn't go to that many screenings because, we had I think I was pretty transparent about this earlier in the year regarding the Cool Things budget. The Cool Things budget, which is what I call the budget from the show to do cool things, is dependent on two major things. Usually my tax refund is a huge component of the Cool Things budget, and then on top of it, sales of the books and ad traffic from the show. And ad traffic from the show and book sales are going great. Tax refund took a huge chunk out of what was anticipated because of switching jobs halfway. Well, not switching jobs. My job was the same all through the year, but my the person who was paying me switched from a recruiting agency to my employer, and as a result, my taxes got all fucked up. So when I ended up doing my taxes, I ended up only getting back like $100, which drastically reduced the amount of money on hand to do cool things with the Cool Things budget. And while there are events like this that I can go to, it is more beneficial to go to events like New York Comic Con, to be on the show floor and cover any news that comes out of, say, Lucasfilm Publishing or something like that. Not to degrade anyone that's involved with the film festivals. It's just, if we have to, that's a sizable amount of the budget that gets set aside every year out of the gate before we get to anything else is the coverage of New York Comic Con. And then we have to take the rest of the money and spread it around among the other events that are happening to do. So like, New York Life, we're going to be covering Life later this year. Next month actually is Life. Stony Brook Film Festival, the Hamptons Doc Fest, I'm going to cover. So like things like that. But what ends up happening is you're just diluting out a much smaller pool, and while I wanted to attend 3 screenings today, that just wasn't, that wasn't done. And it's not that, again, not that saying that having additional books sold would have made a substantial difference. The amount of books that would have needed to have been sold to have offset the loss would have been around, I would say around 500 more than we've ever sold in a calendar year, which is a lot. But if you want to support the show and have us do other cool things, you can always buy some of the books. Like I just released Temple Outside of Time, which just came out, Swan Song. In the end, all of these, books that I really like, they're all written in screenplay format. You can go pick them up. But, the more we sell, the more cool things we get to do on the show. So why does this road seem like it's in fucking, like, a dirt road in upstate New York? I'm in the middle of fucking Queens. Because what I do is I park, it's cheaper to park in Queens and then take the bus and the subway than it is to park in Manhattan and mortgage your house or lose a limb to park your car for 3 hours. So I went to the Narrative Shorts screening, was the one I went to. Narrative 15, I think is what it was called when I when I picked it out. Now, in this block, there are 3 primary. There were 3 shorts that were shown. We're just going to go in order of how they were released. I'm not going to be critical. And I talked about this with someone before I went to the festival about this, where it's being hypercritical like I am with, say, Lightyear, or like Jurassic World Dominion or anything like that, doesn't necessarily help if you're a voiceless guy on a podcast, or a faceless guy on a podcast who's just going out there and just shitting on something. Doesn't exactly help or make people, who does it help? So I'm going to be positive. That's what I'm going to do here. I'm just going to say what I liked about all of these shorts. So the first one was Cloud Cuckoo Country, which was a Thai film, as in from Thailand, and it's a story of these two women who were formerly in a relationship but had broken up, and then they reconnect years later. One has become a journalist, the other has become a the other is engaged to be married, and they're on opposite sides of they're on opposite sides of the political spectrum, and this division is the entire conflict of the story. It is this woman, the one woman who is a journalist, is more liberal, and the woman who is engaged to be married is more conservative. And I think the story is really interesting. The only issue I had with it was not an issue with the movie. It was an issue with me and not knowing what was going on in Thailand. And the thing is, a lot of the translations translate to contemporary things in American government and American politics as we see them now. I don't know how much of that is accurate, or if it's contextualized for a Western audience. But that's not the movie's fault. That's me not knowing what's going on in the government and the politics of Thailand to be able to say that what's happening there and all of that. I really like the way the director, I really should have written her name down. I didn't do that for anyone, and I apologize for that. But the director of this short did an excellent job of taking these national landmarks in Taiwan and turning them into almost characters in the story that help push along the plot and help to illustrate, the militaristic history and all of that goes into this debate. The fact that, the movie does a great job of kind of painting the picture for audiences who are unfamiliar of what happened in Thailand with coups and with and with revolutionaries and all that kind of stuff. However, it doesn't the way that it portrays the government and the cultural impact points also adds to that, where you get these massive displays of nationalism to an extent, and all of that. The dialogue feels organic between the two characters, and the woman who made the documentary, that was me mixing up. The woman who made the short did a great job of making it look like you're watching you're watching a documentary during the sequences where they're showing off what these cultural significant points are, what these items of historical significance are to Taiwan. And then they also explain it in a way that doesn't feel like they're hitting you over the head with exposition. And I think that's a really important point too, where it's like, if these two characters are talking and it's like, and as you know, this is the blah, 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 or this is the Ministry of Defense building, or as you know, where it's like, it's very easy to fall into that kind of expository dialogue. This woman who wrote and directed, and again, should have wrote her name down. I did not. That's entirely on me. She does a great job of showing off, of telling this information to viewers who may not be 100% familiar with what it is, and doing it in a way that doesn't feel like it's hitting you over the head directly with with exposition, solely to bring the people who aren't from Thailand up to speed with information they need to know to understand why this is important. Because it's worked into the dialogue in a natural way, where it's like they're touring these facilities, they're touring these museums, and they're touring these government, locations. And it's so well done. And it wasn't until I had read about it after that I knew that when I'm watching the movie, and this is what I'm talking about in terms of the translation and the subtitles. When I was watching the movie, I didn't know what this was, but at one of the words they use right before the title card, I forgot the word exactly, but it's more of a slang term, and when they translated it to crazy conservative. And the thing is, for an American audience to read that, it's going to automatically reframe the entire conversation. But there isn't really a good way to articulate slang in that way for an audience outside of an audience from Thailand would know what that word means and know its nuance. It's like how idiomatic expressions, if you've ever taken a language class like in high school or something, idiomatic expressions tend to not have literal translations, and if you take a literal translation of an idiomatic expression, it's going to not make sense in the slightest. Or even if we take English idiomatic expressions, they sometimes don't translate in a way that makes sense. So we'll cross that bridge when we get to it is a figurative expression that doesn't literally mean we will cross that bridge when we get to it. And if you're someone who is reading a literal translation of that sentence and you say it in another language and then you read a literal translation of it, it's like, what bridge? What does that mean? What is the point of saying that? And it's that kind of thing where it's like, reading about it after gave me a little bit more context, but again, that's not the movie's fault. I would say that's more of a problem with my perception based on the translation. But besides that, it's a great movie. I really enjoyed that one. The second one was probably my favorite, only because it opened up this whole idea to me of this is a fantastic idea, and it's a very short. It's one of the micro shorts where it's under 10 minutes, and all it is it's this guy sitting in a dark room eating Cheetos, and he's playing a video game, and the computer's telling him, all right, so here's your target, you're going to kill the target, and the computer's talking to him, and it's like he's sitting in his living room, playing Go Fish with his kids and his wife, and then it's like the guy bombs them from orbit, and it turns out it's not a video game, it is it's a what's it called? It's played like an arcade game. If you go to Dave & Buster's and play any of the games, and it's like, you win, you get this many tickets, and you can use these tickets to get this nonsense. It plays exactly like that, but it wraps, it is something that I was watching, I'm like, you know what this feels like? And it feels like Local 58, Local 52, that YouTube channel with the creepy videos. It felt like that a little bit, where there's something disarming about this, or not disarming, but just unsettling about the entire situation, where this person is, they've privatized the drones and they're using it as a video game to take on the enemies of the United States. I think that it's such a great idea, and this is the kind of thing that if this was a trailer for a movie, and this was more recently, when I go to the movies, I see this trailer for this movie, Smile, and all it is it's this woman walking into a hospital. She walks past this guy's room, and the guy is sitting at the edge of his bed, smiling. And then she walks in, and she's snapping in his face, and hey, excuse me, and he's just not responsive, and he's just sitting there smiling. And it's this 30-second spot, and it's so interesting because it piques your interest, and I feel the same way about this. It's such a great proof of concept that if I went to a movie theater and they ran this before it, because not only is it a cool idea, but it comes up with there's this fantastic visual theme to the whole thing, where it's very analog, and it feels very I don't know the exact word for it, but cassette punk, I think would be it, because it's not diesel punk, but it feels kind of cassette punk, where it's a VCR that's spitting out the tickets and all that kind of stuff. But it's this idea that, like, you know, these people are doing that, and it's such a great idea. Like, it's the kind of thing that, like, if that happened, that would instantly jump to the top of my list of holy shit, I want to keep an eye out for this movie list. And I hope that someone with some kind of financing in Hollywood can go to the person who made this movie and be like, hey, do you want to do a feature-length version of this? Like, can you do that? Because I would watch the fuck out of an entire movie of that. Like a political thriller, like a sci-fi political thriller kind of thing. Or, like, it could be, like, this is the kind of thing that I see this, and I'm like, this, if this came out, would be the modern RoboCop. Like, RoboCop for the modern era. Like, alright, twat, won't let me in. So, like, yeah, like, I think that that's a interesting movie that I would love to see writ large into a feature. Or even if it was not even a feature, just, like, a short that kind of covers all the same kind of, like, you know, like, ground, that would be interesting, too. Because I think you can do that in probably under 40 minutes, if not under an hour and a half. And I would be very interested to see a full-length version of that story. And the same goes for the last one, Novel Romance. And again, don't have any names. Should have written down names. But it's a pretty concise little story, and it's very self-contained, very short and very small. This girl goes to a secondhand book location, and the only reason that I know about this place is because I watched that documentary on booksellers that premiered at the New York Film Festival a few years ago. And she goes to that little thing, picks up a secondhand book and brings it back home with her roommate and goes, I got a new one for the book collection, but this one is special. I already have this book, but this one has it has a note in it from the previous entry. And what happens is the girl and her roommate speculate about what happened in the relationship that led to this book ending up in this in this secondhand book repository. And then it's them thinking about what happened that would lead to this person donating this book with this note inside it, because of what the note is. It's this note of, like, it's a love note. And you know, the roommate's like, look, if it's a love note and she donated the book, then it didn't have sentimental value, which means the guy left her or the guy cheated on her or whatever. So the two of them start going through various, you know, scenarios in their head, like, oh, the guy cheated and she kicked him out, or it's like, you know, oh, she went to get a new job and he left the book on the train when he was going to bring it to her. And it's a interesting little self-contained thing about what could have happened to lead to this book ending up on there. And it's the kind of thing that, like, it makes you kind of think, like, well, I don't have all the facts. I have some of the facts. Let me just figure out what could this be? And then in the end, you see what actually happened. Because the two stop talking, they go their separate ways, and then you see, again, the girl and the boy once again talking, and it's, you know, the girl accidentally donated it. She totally did it on accident, and the guy got her a new version of the book and proposed it. It's such a cute story, and it's very well done. The acting's all great from everyone involved, and all three of these shorts are fantastic. So yeah, so I think we'll wrap up there for today, with the three shorts out of the New York City Independent Film Festival, which, if you haven't been, and I mean, it's already almost over. I think tomorrow's the last day, but if you haven't been, it's worth it to go and check it out. It's in this, you know, this little club, where you're, you know, it's got a little bar, and they got 3 theaters. It's a very small, intimate setting, and it's very much worth, very much worth your time if you like independent films. If you want to see people, you know, make movies for the love of making movies and tell stories for the love of telling stories, then something like this is for you. And it's reasonably cheap. It was $16.50 per screening. I think tickets at the door were slightly cheaper because you have to pay a convenience fee for the online, or the fee for PayPal online. but it's so worth your time to check this out. And they are, they're wrapping up for this year, but next year it will be again in June. So we'll wrap up there for today. We'll be back with Miss Marvel. I will do a Miss Marvel episode 2 review, probably tomorrow morning. If not tomorrow morning, then Monday evening, because I am a very busy person. And tomorrow's Father's Day. So until our next episode, have a great rest of your week.